Guys, guess what I did? I bought the big book version of The Art of Seduction, and I'm here to teach you today about the chapter called Send Mixed Signals. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
What's my name? That's my name. This is a breakdown and my own interpretation and my own opinion of Robert Greene's chapter, the book Art of Seduction. And the chapter is called Sending Mixed Signals. Now, when you're naturally in the flow state, you have this Tao-like quality, right? Tao as in T-A-O, like quality, where you automatically send mixed signals because you're not playing in the world of duality anymore. By sending mixed signals, you're not trying to confuse people. The effect of your character, your communication, your archetype is supposed to insinuate, it's supposed to create fascination in people where they get magnetized to your allure or your charisma or the quality about you that doesn't seem to fit into any box, right? Like if we're talking about myself, I don't think you guys can put me into a box and say that, oh, he's a coach, or is he a shaman, or is he a break dancer, or is he an MMA fighter, or is he, what does he do? Who is he? He is flow. He is formless, he's shapeless, he's like water. So a lot of the times mixed signals can be confused for simply bad communication, okay? Don't let that become a byproduct of doing this, because a lot of people get confused by what we mean by mixed signals, okay? Emotions are also signals, remember, and emotions are very valuable in interactions for people. What's good, bro? So just because you haven't practiced your communication, it doesn't mean that you have to be stuck in your head, you know, fearing being a hopeless romantic, have like, you know, complaining about unrequited love. You know, it's like that cartoon of like, you know, the person who picks up a flower, right? And they're like, she loves me not. She loves me not, right? Don't do that, okay? Don't become that version of you. Here are some things that are not mixed signals, okay? But very much so in popular culture, they're seen as mixed signals. Someone who doesn't make plans very specifically but tells you, oh yeah, that sounds great, okay? Oh yeah, that sounds like a great time. Okay, yeah, I'll let you know. Okay? No, don't do that. Or they're saying like something like, man, there's hella noise here all the time, bro. Let's say that they don't talk to you, or they say that they don't want to be with you, or they don't like you, but they're checking your Instagram stories, right? That's another mixed signal that we believe in culture. But this is not really what we're talking about, not what Robert Greene is talking about, okay? Remember, investing time and energy in someone who does not have that emotional return is setting yourself up for heartache, okay? Don't do that to yourself. But really listen to what I'm telling you here in this video. Send mixed signals in the right way. This is not about non-committal responses. It's not about ghosting, love bombing people, okay? It's not about being toxic. You're playing with opposite qualities is what we mean by sending mixed signals. So you are playing with contrast, like shyness and boldness, artificiality and a naturalness, a sense of good and bad, or hot and cold. Some people refer to this kind of behavior as like the coquette archetype, right? For a lot of people, emotions is the value in the interaction, right? So how did you make them feel? Like when they're left without your presence, did you make them go into their imaginations? Do you make them fantasize about you and imagine different scenarios with you, right? Are you leaving them with the feeling of like watching a really good movie? You know, when you watch a really good movie and you get captivated by it and you remember it so deeply, when you walk out of the cinema hall, you just feel this instant knowingness that like, hey, this was meant to be for me. The reason this kind of paradox is so alluring and so seductive is because paradox plays with meaning. And we as human beings, we're meaning-making creatures. We want closure. We want to close the loops in our mind. So if someone doesn't close that loop in our mind, we're going to constantly be obsessed and thinking about them, right? Because they're inconceivable. They're impossible to understand who they are, what they are. They're a mystery. They're an illusion. They are elusive in a sense, and that makes us more captivated by their presence. So essentially, you become an impossible puzzle to figure out. You become a walking paradox.
No, I'm not. Threesomes with a triceratops.
So the way you want to do this, right? You want to take a first initial quality. Let's say it's wittiness or spontaneity, something like this, or intellect, right? And you want to combine it with a hint of a second quality. Now, this second quality has to be slightly more subtle. It's not like it's a complete, like a flip, right? An oppositional flip that becomes like, oh, like I'm happy and then I'm sad. No, that looks schizophrenic. That looks confusing, right? In a sense, or mood swings, something like that. It's got to have a very slight hint of that quality. So let's say it's a little subtle shyness or a coyness. It's a subtle sense of like you don't follow the rules, a little rebellious streak within you that shows itself. This kind of boldness with shyness or these opposing qualities, but the second quality, remember, is very less. You have a main quality, play around with one main quality and a secondary quality that almost gives it a little bit of fuel or emphasis, okay? That is what will cause that paradox. That is what will insinuate and create images in people's minds like, wait, but they're like this, but sometimes they're like that, and oh, okay, I think I'm starting to figure them out, but I'm not really sure. You don't want to be weird, you don't want to confuse others. It's like what Bruce Lee says, right? Unnatural naturalness and natural unnaturalness, or acting non-acting, in a sense, okay? So it hits all by itself. You're not trying so hard to maintain this paradox. Sometimes you'll notice like even celebrities, spiritual gurus, influencers, they'll contradict themselves because they're speaking to people at various levels of their growth, right? You don't want to do that specifically, but I would say that having that quality of like being hard to get, being not so accessible, will give you that almost that mirage-like quality. This person is distant and aloof, but sometimes they're also very charming and open and sociable. Like, I don't get it, but it's just eating me up. Like, who are they really? Like, what is their real self? Like, what is going on here, right? It makes us go on a rabbit hole, like just thinking about this person. It drives us wild. It gets us obsessed, right? Because we're trying to figure them out. Like, what is going on here? I mean, think about this, right? Like, dopamine creates that quality of maybe. Like, let's take the example of gambling, right? In gambling, you have a 50% chance. You don't know whether you're going to win or you're going to lose. But that's what makes it so addictive in the first place, is because of that maybe quality. The same beingness of maybe, if you carry within your aura or presence, you'll get people addicted to that, like trying to figure you out, but they can't. Robert Greene says a lot of Don Juans have this kind of subtle femininity or prettiness to them. Like, I, for one, know that I have a very feminine kind of face, which is why I'm constructing my body to be more masculine and add little edges, like, you know, to really construct the image of my avatar to be the greatest version of my seductive self that I can embody. Of course, this video is my perspective. You can have your own perspective, make your own videos, you know what I mean? If you're here, you're interested in hearing what I have to say, look into Robert Greene's work. I mean, he does mention Marilyn and how she has an angelic face with these wild, you know, movements. That just reminds us, right, of that quality. So merge your intellect with danger, merge your softness with your toughness. You'll have this natural-like quality that just emanates from your beingness, where just animals will kind of, you know, keep following you around. So in this book, right, they mention this woman called Madame Recamier or something like this. I could totally just, you know, bastardize that name. However, you know, she was described as being sweet with a subtle hint of sadness in her eyes. Now, that sounds so poetic, and that's that quality of a mixed signal, right? Why is she so sad? It's like this paternal instinct in the man, like, I want to take care of her, like, is she okay? You could do this as a man, you could do this as a woman. You understand, right, what this mixed signals really is now. And it's not this aggravating thing that people do. I mean, you can use it in that sense, but please don't, right? I'm making a disclaimer right now to not be love bombing. Don't be sending people weird, incongruous things. Like, if you were gonna play a character in your life, like, I'm using theatroplasticity, right? That's my own method. So if you're playing a quality of intellect, you've got to actually be intellectual. Okay? It's got to be an amplification of your already existing personality. It can't be like something completely vague and weird. Do a lot of work to get to that place, right? First of all, just focus on the internal quality or the feeling that you're trying to generate. Think of like the amplification of your own personality. Like if you have wittiness that is underneath the surface, or like kind of like waiting dormant, like a volcano waiting to execute, right? And as soon as you hit flow state, it just flows out of you. Like last night, I went to a venue with my cousin sister, and I noticed that just in my charisma and my beingness, I started to take myself out of body in certain moments and think of like, what will all these people in this venue think of me, right? Just from the outside, right? Stop thinking so much about me, and you start thinking about your audience and who's being affected by it, right? Because someone who is not really into the incongruencies between like mixed signals and things like that, some people might not actually have, it might not have a similar effect, right, to certain people. That's why it's so important to understand like who is your actual target, like understand what is actually going on in their minds, right? And so if we have too much of one of these qualities, right, if it's unbalanced, it's completely extreme on one quality and it doesn't have a subtle hint of something else, it becomes very bizarre and threatening, right? Like if you're only very, very innocent, that's just an innocent person. They don't have any other interesting quirks about them. They're just that. They're just blandly that, right? I think Robert Greene really understands this idea of how to get people obsessed with you, right? It's adding that little bit of that difference, a little bit of that unique quality you can carry within yourself. And then, of course, there was an example of Oscar Wilde, okay? He's described as having a very interesting style of dress, like it's kind of well-mannered and things like this, but then he also has a witticism and a weird like quirk in the way that he speaks. It's almost very artificial, but it has spontaneity as well, and it's very difficult to pinpoint. But what I've noticed is like having that kind of timeless character, you emanate a quality about you that makes people almost awaken, triggered, right? It's like people are having a Satori experience. They're either laughing at you openly, or they can't control their nervousness around you, right? Or they're so triggered. It can also happen like, with the use of pheromones and things like this. You notice like men become more aggressive, women become more attractive, like this kind of alpha male quality, right? Like you either trigger people or they get very intimidated, or they challenge you on the spot, or some things like this. So as you go on this self-improvement, improving your seduction artistry journey, you'll get a lot of this, man. You'll get challenged, people will get triggered by your presence. That's a part of it. It's like, it's the thrill of being an artist or being someone who creates. Not everybody's gonna resonate, but you are just the conduit, right? You're just making way for whatever it is to come speak through you, okay? This is not just me spitting my book knowledge about art of seduction. This is me really refining myself and refining my character. So try this out. Try and maybe mix your coldness with your romanticism, your practicality with your spirituality. Try to bring these two elements and really get people to start thinking about you more and more from the way that you carry yourself differently to other people. And when you're tapped into the flow state, you don't really need to worry about sending mixed signals or being the perfect kind of person, right? It's just going to happen very, very naturally because you are in that pocket and state where you're feeling really, really good about yourself, right? And people can sense that. When you feel good about yourself, when you're at ease and you're just speaking freely, like there's no sense of worry, there's a sense of presence, a sense of patience. can just carry yourself with so much ease and so much grace. It doesn't become like this robotic maneuver of you trying to get the other person to like you. Instead, it just becomes a part of your beingness. The more people can signify you and put you into a box, right? Like, let's say you're like, oh yeah, he's a lawyer. All lawyers are like that. They put you in a box, they can control you now. You see what I'm saying? When people could put you into a category, like, oh yeah, he's a rocker, you know, he'll do that. Of course people will do that. People have this natural inclination to understand things and understand other people, right? But when they can't, that's when it becomes this kind of very magnetic type of quality, because we're like, I'm trying to solve this puzzle of a human being. So don't let people control you. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a control over your own image and your character, and you can sharpen your skills, you can also amplify aspects of your personality and show people, you know, not all of you at once. Like, reveal little by little, keep the mystery engaging and enduring. Don't just give people everything in that one moment. Have a little bit of that grace, that little bit of that playfulness. Really play with these different qualities about you and almost emphasize the best versions of you, right? You want to be a multi-dimensional being, right? You don't want to be trapped in one dogmatic archetype where you're just trying to appear that way and it's just not naturally a part of you. Like, if you're a natural, right? You have that childlike quality, right? Childlike quality, bro. I have a childlike quality, that's why I'm changing my voice right now. If you have a naturalness, right, a childlike quality about you, play that up. Let's say this, right? Because I'm not originally a very rakish type of person who will just tell people like, oh, I desire you so much, and get raptured, like get captured and raptured, spitting bars. But at the same time, I know poetry. I know, like, I make my own hip hop. I record my own hip hop songs and things like this, right? And so that helps me to gain that poetic aspect of the rake. So I can pull that aspect from my own interest, which is associated with my subconscious mind because it's nostalgic. I used to do this ever since I was a small child, right? Putting songs on SoundClick, things like that. I don't know if you guys remember like Dat Piff mixtapes and stuff like this. I have that quality with the linguistics and the words and like weaving together sentences. I have that in my background, right? In my backstory somewhere. So if I want to play a little bit of a rakish character, I've got to go into that, right? It's almost like a method actor, how they really take aspects of their own life and they emphasize, they amplify it, they add spirituality, depth, right? Ultimately, sending mixed signals comes down to depth. You have a depth of character, you have a depth of a persona. You're not like very superficial, one-sided type of person who's just completely, you know, one-dimensional, really boring, cut and dry, copy-paste type of person, right? That's the opposite of what you want to be, in a sense, if you're really looking into this art form. So I hope you enjoyed this video today. I took myself to the park. I think this is a great place to shoot videos, so I'm gonna try to come here more often. It's nice to be around nature, you know what I mean? But yeah, guys, have an incredible day. May the flow be with you, and stay legendary. Let's get it today, Upward Spiral Gang. You already know, hit that subscribe button. We're gonna win every single day. Let's go.